Hi, everyone. It's so glad to be back, and thank you for tuning in for yet another conversation that we get to have this week. And so this time, I want to shift gears and speak directly to women. More specifically, I want to speak directly to the woman who has had enough, the woman who continues to show up in her relationships, but the relationship feels like it's a sinking ship, right? It's the woman who's tired of trying to save something that no longer feels safe. It doesn't feel sturdy. It doesn't feel mutual. It seems like nothing's being reciprocated, or it seems like not much of it is being reciprocated. So today I'm here for the woman who feels like she wants a way out, not just out of a relationship, but out of a pattern, out of exhaustion, out of settling, and out of abandoning herself. So, here is something that I really want you to hear very early on in this conversation today. Wanting something healthier does not make you disloyal. You're just saying that, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. Today, you're being honest. And so, there's a difference between being committed and being consumed. And so I like to reiterate to a lot of women that I speak with that you being honest about this doesn't make you weak. Yes, you're overfunctioning though. You are emotionally aware. There are some communication things that you're doing well. You're reflective, you try, you adjust, and you carry, and you are hopeful. However, hope without change becomes self betrayal, right? Some of you may also be familiar with this part. Faith without works is what? Faith without works is dead. And so you yourself may be very familiar when a relationship is no longer growing. You can feel it. You can feel when you are like the only one who is doing the internal work, not just things on the outside, but starting some of the work on the inside. You can feel like when you're in moments when you're shrinking to keep the peace. You may feel like you're walking on eggshells. And if you're honest, you also know that what you're experiencing is not just about the current relationships. It's really about the whole trajectory of, your life story. It involves a pattern of choosing emotionally unavailable partners, a pattern of staying too long, a pattern of confusing intensity with intimacy, over giving to prove worth, a pattern of calling survival love. And when you say you want a way out, what you actually might be saying is, I want a new direction. And the direction does not necessarily have to start with leaving, it starts with clarity. So before you make any external moves, there's some internal stability that needs to take place. So, to make things a little bit more clear and structure, I want to talk about some foundational shifts. So, if you can grab something to write with and something to write on, maybe even type it out in your phone, your tablet, or whatever device that is suitable for you. So remember, please, this is not hyping up motivational type of talking that I'm doing today. I really want to provide some type of structure for those who are in this space. So let's start. Here's the first shift. Stop asking, how do I make this relationship better? And start asking yourself, who am I becoming inside of this relationship? This question reveals so many things. So if you ask yourself this question, you may also begin to ask, am I more anxious than secure? Am I more quiet when I want to speak? Even ask yourself, are you explaining yourself repeatedly over and over and over again? Are you negotiating basic levels of respect? And are you performing strength while feeling depleted? Your nervous system will tell you the truth before your mind does. And if you're constantly bracing, um, constantly anticipating conflict, trying to manage someone else's emotions, which you probably know does not really go over well, you're not in partnership. You are in a state of hypervigilance. And hypervigilance is not intimacy. Healthy love, it allows you to expand. When you're in an unhealthy relationship, it may force you to kind of shrink up, to contract. And so, in the relationship that you may be in, and I'm telling you, it doesn't necessarily have to be an intimate relationship. This can also be with, people on the job, different partnerships there, in your business, family, whatever type of relationship this is. Think of these things. And so let's reel it in just for the sake of having clarity. Let's say intimate relationships for this conversation. So you get to ask yourself, am I expanding or am I contracting in this relationship? You can write it down, like I said, on your devices or on a piece of paper with a pen, whatever it is that you choose, and be specific when you write it down. Shift to identify where you learned to tolerate this. Why is this important? Because it's important that we get to the root of the behaviors that's being shown forth today. Many adults in relationships um, see some of the unfinished business that has taken place, whether in childhood, in adolescence, or any type, um, any place in our lives that may have been unresolved, whatever the experience may have been. So, if it was in your childhood, if you grew up in a home where love was inconsistent, unpredictable, or conditional, you may have learned how to work for closeness. If you grew up having to be someone that was more mature, the peacemaker, the one who fixes everything, right? You may feel like you're responsible for holding relationships together. If you have grown up and you felt unseen, you may over explain now. If you grew up feeling criticized, you may be someone who overperforms now. And it's not about blaming anyone in your past and your family, but more so understanding that you have the power and you can look at this blueprint to know what changes you get to make moving forward. Because if you don't examine what has happened before, the things that has gone unaddressed, you will continue to try and build on the same structure, just with different people getting the same type of results you may feel like you don't want anymore. And so, with the things that you have, if you have like a pen and paper, here's an exercise that you can do. Divide a page into two columns, maybe fold it in half. On the left side, write what feels familiar in this relationship. So that would be on the left side. On the right side, you can write, where have I experienced this before? You may notice that the emotional tone of your current relationship is quite familiar or mirrors something that you experienced earlier in your life. And familiarity does not mean that it's healthy. It just means that it's familiar to you and you know it. The nervous system will often choose familiarity over safety, right? Because in with the body and with the mind, sometimes familiarity is safety, even if it actually isn't, even if it is a situation or an environment that is actually hindering or stifling growth in your life. And so this leads us to the third shift. You get to now define what healthy actually means to you. And this is where you don't get to take definitions from social media. You don't get to take what some of your friends or colleagues may say, or not even defining it by what you think you should want. So, really be specific in the definition of what healthy means to you. And then I want you to look at, what does emotional safety look like for you? Does that mean consistent communication, mutual effort, shared values? What is this for you? If you cannot clearly define healthy, you will accept almost healthy. And this is where some women may struggle, because they know what they don't want, but they don't know how to clearly articulate what they do want. So if that's you, here's another exercise that you can try. You can write 3 green flags that matter to you, just 3. So here's some examples. One green flag can be, effort is mutual, not lopsided. Another example is, I do not feel afraid to express disappointment. Another can be, when there is tension, we address it directly instead of avoiding it. These are examples of some green flags that could matter to you. Please don't take all of these and just write them down and say that they are your own. Write down what's truly important to you. And so these are going to be, of course, observable and something that you can measure and track. So just know that whatever the situation may be, if you stay in a relationship long enough without standards, you will start to negotiate your own boundaries. And this is where resentment can start to build. And here's something that may be difficult to say out loud. Some of you don't just want to leave the relationships that you're in, you want to escape the version of yourself that is within those relationships. It's the version of yourself that may tolerate what's going on. The one who always explains away the red flags. The one who may say it's not that bad. It's really not. It's the version of you who calls breadcrumbs a meal. You're not crazy for wanting more, but it does require capacity to do more. So if you leave a situation without doing the internal work, as mentioned earlier, you're going to carry the same type of relational posture into the next situation. And so the question may not necessarily be to ask, should I leave? It's really, am I building the version of myself that can sustain something healthier? Because if we think about it, there may have been times where we have gotten into maybe a healthier situation or a healthier relationship, but it wasn't the other person that necessarily threw rocks at the house. It was probably us because we weren't ready for that healthy version and we didn't do the internal work yet. So in those spaces, you get to look at what does healthy relationships require and what does healthy love look like. And so sometimes if you're someone that's used to adrenaline, if something is calm, it may feel boring to you. And so part of shifting your trajectory is recalibrating your nervous system to feel safe, even in stability. And this takes practice. So here is where your focus gets to move from how do I fix this person to how do I strengthen myself? And strengthening yourself can mean learning to sit with discomfort without chasing reassurance, speaking directly instead of hinting, going around in circles around the thing that you really want to say, observing behavior instead of clinging to potential. That's a big one. And letting the data guide you instead of fantasy. So if someone is consistently showing you who they are, so it's an old verbiage, but it's so true. Believe them. If they show you who they are, believe them. Don't try to believe the version that you hope they will become. Don't lean towards the potential in them. This is not about becoming hardened or becoming cold-hearted. It's about becoming grounded. Because when you're grounded, you don't have to rush in your decisions. You observe, you ask clear questions, you get clarity, you ask for clarity. You deserve partnership and stability. So if you feel like, this is still hard, totally valid. Understand. So just know that patterns are not broken by insight alone. They can be broken by repetition. You see this mic going in and out. That's crazy. And you can also build new relational muscles by practicing new behaviors. So for example, instead of over explaining, state your need once and just pause. Instead of chasing, step back and watch what they do. Instead of minimizing a red flag, name it. You may feel uncomfortable at first, but that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means that you're being stretched. And if you decide to leave from a place of clarity and not chaos. And if you decide to stay with standards. And if you leave because you're aligned with yourself. Know that you are not powerless. You do have power, but you also need a plan. Ooh, that was a lot. I know. So know with all of this, you don't need to rush at all. Take your time. Go through the exercises and see what's showing up, not just with the other person, but with you as well. And you don't have to implode your life overnight. Clarity, standards, and start with strengthening yourself. The woman who has had enough is not just dramatic and overemphasizes what's happening or what's going wrong in her life, but she's discerning. You know, she grows in wisdom and learns from the things that's happened. Having discernment can definitely change your life for the better. So don't forget, write down those patterns. And if you want to write down one thing that you're no longer willing to repeat, or write down a standard that you're raising, write down one behavior that you're willing to practice this week, because small, consistent shifts build momentum. You don't have to do a lot all at once, just one thing. You're not trying to escape your life, but you're trying to rebuild it with integrity. And with that, I support you. And just remember that this begins with you. Don't be afraid to do the work. It's going to be okay, even if it doesn't feel like it in this moment. So until next time, I really hope and pray that this lands on the person it needs to land on so that it can be fruitful for you. Know that you're not alone in this, and that good things are coming your way. You got this. Take it one step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time. So until next time, love on yourself and love on others. Take care.